Rapunzel from the story by the brothers Grimm, illustrated by Desideria Guicciardini. The Witch's Garden. Mr. and Mrs. Rose lived in a small house that looked onto a beautiful garden, a garden never dared enter, because it belonged to a wicked and powerful witch. There she is, hide. Mrs. Rose would sit by her window and gaze at the garden for hours. But lately, she had spent a lot of time thinking about food. Today, I'd like chocolate pudding stuffed with spinach, she decided, and minced frog. Mr. Rose wasn't surprised. Ever since you've been pregnant, he said, you've wanted to eat the oddest things. Or perhaps, Mrs. Rose went on, I'll have bananas, Brussels sprouts, and toothpaste. Oh yes, that would be lovely. Are you sure? Asked Mr. Rose. Yes, Mrs. Rose replied. I am, although I still think something might be missing. Worms? Mr. Rose suggested. Or maybe you'd like some crushed ants on top. Wait a moment, Mrs. Rose cried, pointing to the witch's garden. That's it. What is? That vegetable. Ooh, it looks so green and juicy. I must have it. Mr. Rose looked. Well, you can't have it, he said. I'm not going in that garden. The witch would eat me alive. If I don't have that plant, I'll die, said Mrs. Rose, and she began to cry. Stop, thief. I don't like heights. After 3 hours of sobbing, Mr. Rose gave in, and that night he crept into the witch's garden. These vegetables all look the same in the dark, he thought. How am I meant to know which one she wants? And it's freezing. So he grabbed the nearest vegetable and raced home. You stupid sausage, cried Mrs. Rose. You brought me a turnip. You'll have to go back again. Next time, Mr. Rose looked carefully around the garden. Well, this one has green leaves, and it must be right, he thought. But as he pulled it out of the ground, he shuddered. A foul smell had crept up his nose. He looked up and screamed. The witch was in front of him. Mr. Rose would smell her disgusting witchy breath. How dare you steal my Rapunzel? The witch cried. I'll make you pay for this, you thieving little pimple. I'll eat you alive, she hissed, a nasty glint in her eye. I'm sure you'll be very tasty. Please don't eat me, begged Mr. Rose. He was shaking with fear. I was taking it for my wife, and she was about to have a baby, he stammered. Said the witch, thoughtfully. A baby? She paused for a moment. I'll make a deal with you. I won't kill you, and you can have as much Rapunzel as you like. Oh, thank you, thank you. But you must give me the baby as soon as it's born. Mr. Rose was so terrified he agreed. He walked slowly home, shaking his head with worry. Maybe she'll change her mind, he thought desperately. I must hope for the best. But as soon as his wife gave birth to their daughter, the witch appeared. The child is mine, she cried. She gave a wicked grin. And I shall call her Rapunzel after the plant you stole. Now give. Mrs. Rose wept and wept, but the witch would not give in. Don't take my baby. Too late, the deal is done. She snatched the baby and vanished. Chapter 3, The Tower. Get me 10 slugs for my spell. Rapunzel lived with the witch for 11 years, and she was treated like a slave. The older she grew, the more beautiful Rapunzel became. She had blue eyes and long golden hair, and it flowed from the top of her head, down her back, past her feet, and all along the ground. Rapunzel's getting too pretty, thought the witch. I'll have to lock her away. I don't want any young man running off with her. On the morning of Rapunzel's 12th birthday, the witch woke her early. I have a lovely surprise for you, she said. We're going to the forest for a picnic. The forest was deep and dark, and it didn't seem a good choice for a picnic. In the very middle of the forest stood a tower. I don't like it here, Rapunzel said with a shudder. Get used to it, cackled the witch, because this is your new home. The witch cast a spell, and Rapunzel found herself in a small room at the very top of the tower. Let me out! I can't live here, cried Rapunzel. There's no way out, no stairs, no door. You don't need to get out, said the witch. I just need to get in, and then I can climb up your hair. Maybe I won't let you, said Rapunzel. Then you'll starve, said the witch with a shrug. Come on, let's try. Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. Rapunzel heaved her hair out of the window. Her long locks tumbled down the tower and landed at the witch's feet. The witch climbed up Rapunzel's hair and into the tower. Chapter 4, Prince Hans. I'm so bored. 4 years went by. Rapunzel never saw anyone except the old witch. And no one in the world knew where Rapunzel was until one day. This forest is spooky. A young and handsome prince rode through the forest, and Rapunzel spotted him from her window. Help! She cried as loudly as she could. Please help me! The prince looked up astonished. Don't worry, he called. I'll save you. Spurring on his horse, he galloped to the tower. Prince Hans to the rescue, he called. He rode around the tower 3 times. I can't find the door, he said. There is no door, Rapunzel told him, and this is a magic tower. I've been kept here by a wicked witch. You must climb up my hair. Well, I've never done that before, said Prince Hans, and this is harder than it looks, you know, he added as he began to climb. What's your name? He asked. Rapunzel, she replied. Prince Hans almost fell off her hair laughing. Just what's so funny? Rapunzel asked haughtily. You got the same name as a vegetable, said Prince Hans, still chuckling. Oh, said Rapunzel, who thought her pretty name was rather pretty. Perhaps I'm too funny to rescue? Not at all, said Prince Hans as he reached the top of the tower. But how am I going to save you? You're the prince, said Rapunzel. You think of something. Prince Hans looked around the room thoughtfully and spotted a pair of scissors. Gosh, I'm brilliant. I know, he cried. I'll cut off your hair, make a rope, and then we can both climb down. You are not cutting off my hair, said Rapunzel. Have you any idea how long it took to grow? Fine, replied Prince Hans, but you'll have to come up with a better idea, or your hair gets it. Rapunzel thought quickly. Visit me every night and bring a ball of silk with you. I'll weave a ladder from it. But that will take ages, said Prince Hans. Rapunzel frowned at him. Which isn't the problem, he added quickly. After that, the prince came every evening. He told Rapunzel about his kingdom. I live in a beautiful castle, he said. There are courtyards full of fountains and flowers, and turrets that touch the sky. Rapunzel longed to go there. Chapter 5, The Witch's Trick. As the weeks passed, Rapunzel's ladders grew longer and longer. Only one more week and I'll be free, she thought to herself one morning. Rapunzel, the witch called from outside. Rapunzel, let down your hair. I have some food for you. As the witch climbed up, she pulled and tugged painfully on Rapunzel's hair. Ow! Cried Rapunzel. Why do you always tug so much? Prince Hans never hurts me when he climbs. What? Prince Hans? Shouted the witch. Who is Prince Hans, you wicked girl? I thought I'd shut you away from the world, but you tricked me. The witch leaped into the tower and quickly grabbed a pair of scissors. She hacked away at Rapunzel's hair until it lay in a heap on the floor. "I haven't finished," cried the witch. With a powerful spell, she cast Rapunzel into the desert. Then the witch waited for the prince, a sly smile on her wrinkled face. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." That night, Prince Hans called out to Rapunzel as usual. Her hair came shimmering down. But when the prince reached the top of the tower, he gasped in shock. An ugly old crone stood in her place. "Where's Rapunzel?" he demanded. "Rapunzel's gone," said the witch with a sinister laugh. "You'll never see her again." Then the witch leaned out of the tower and kissed Prince Hans with her slimy lips. "Yuck!" cried the prince. It was a magic kiss. Suddenly, the prince's hands were covered in slime, and he lost his grip and fell to the ground like a stone. Prince Hans landed smack in a thorn bush. It saved his life, but the sharp thorns blinded him. "Arg, I can't see." Despite his pain, Prince Hans stood up. "I may be blind," he shouted to the witch, "but I'll find Rapunzel." "Never!" And she cackled. Prince Hans wandered for months seeking Rapunzel. At last he met a camel seller who told him about a girl with golden hair and blue eyes, living alone in the middle of the desert. Prince Hans hired a driver and the fastest horses he could find. "Take me to the desert," he ordered. Rapunzel saw the carriage arrive in amazement. As Prince Hans stumbled out, she ran to him, put her arms around his neck, and wept. Two of her tears fell into Princess Hans' eyes, and he gasped. "I can see," he cried. "Rapunzel," he said, "I never thought I'd say this to a girl named after a vegetable, but will you marry me?" "Oh, yes," said Rapunzel. Princess Hans took Rapunzel to his castle. The entire kingdom was invited to their wedding, including Mr. and Mrs. Rose. "My daughter." Princess Rapunzel and Prince Hans lived happily together for the rest of their lives, and in time had 3 beautiful children: Pumpkin, Lettuce, and Sprout.